I'm Eric Anderson. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, gunfire at a newspaper office in Paris. A dozen people killed at a publication that was threatened because of its satires.
I'm Peggy Pico with response from a San Diego cartoonist and journalist to the terrorist killing of 12 people at a satirical newspaper in Paris. Also ahead, how much more will you pay for eggs since the cage-free law took effect on the 1st? A local farmer and veterinarian reveals the benefits and cost of humane livestock farming.
And can you picture this on the San Diego waterfront? We'll have a look at a proposal for a giant Ferris wheel by the bay. KPBS Evening Edition starts now. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Dwayne Brown is off tonight. Police in France say the 3 gunmen who shot up a Paris newspaper office are connected to a terrorist group in Yemen. A dozen people were killed in the attack. They were journalists and cartoonists for a weekly that was threatened for its satires of Islamic extremists and the Prophet Muhammad. Our coverage begins with Matt Friedman of the Associated Press.
A burst of gunfire, followed by shouts in Arabic of God is great, part of a deadly assault in which masked gunmen stormed the offices of a Paris-based satirical newspaper. Charlie Hebdo had already been under protection due to threats. The publication has drawn regular condemnation from Muslims. Video shows 2 gunmen running to a car and firing, then aiming at a police officer lying on the ground, shooting and killing the already wounded man. Security forces are on the hunt for 3 suspects in total. A police union official said that attackers left in a waiting car and later switched to another vehicle that had been stolen. Among the dead, cartoonist Jean Cabou and chief editor Stéphane Charbonnet, who went by the pen name Charb. He gave this prophetic interview in 2012.
Our job is not to defend freedom of speech, but without freedom of speech, we are dead. I prefer to die than live like a rat, I don't know.
Le jour noir de l'histoire de la presse française.
This is a black day for the French press. How can we imagine a worse attack when this editorial team, Charlie Hebdo, has already been threatened in the past?
The attack brought condemnation from President Barack Obama and other world leaders.
For us to see the kind of cowardly, evil attacks that took place today, I think reinforces once again why it's so important for us to stand in solidarity with them, just as they stand in solidarity with us.
It was a horrendous, unjustifiable, and cold-blooded crime.
What has happened in Paris is an appalling terrorist outrage.
Following the assault, France raised its terror alert to the highest level. Officials also reinforced security measures at houses of worship and other public places. Matt Friedman, Associated Press.
A Pulitzer Prize-winning editorial cartoonist for the UT San Diego says that Paris will have a chilling effect on satire. Steve Breen says he tries not to be needlessly provocative in his work. He told KPBS he's learned that he has to be extremely careful when dealing with religion and race because he doesn't want his point to be lost or twisted. We have Breen's complete statement on our website, kpbs.org. You'll also find this cartoon by San Diego native Lalo Alcaraz, the creator of La Cucaracha cartoon. Peggy Pico now has more reaction from San Diego's media community.
I'd like to welcome my guest, San Diego City Beat editor David Rowland and San Diego-based cartoonist Baton Lash, creator of the comic book Supernatural Law, and whose work is published on the website bighollywood.com. Welcome to Evening Edition. Now, Dave, the Committee to Protect Journalists calls this shooting, quote, a brazen assault on free expression in the heart of Europe. What kind of effect do you think this attack in Paris is having on journalists, or will have on journalists, and here and elsewhere?
Well, we won't know that until journalists and editors have to start making those tough decisions in the future about what to publish and how far to go. I can just talk for myself, and probably for many journalists. The first inclination is to get angry and want to lash out and stand by those journalists who have fallen for journalistic freedom, and almost maybe even be offensive for offensive's sake, just to make a point and out of solidarity. But then you have to stand back and you have to worry about people around you, the people who work in your staff, the advertising staff, the production staff, not just your journalism staff. And it's a time for professional soul searching.
And Batten, speaking of which, political cartoonists seem to be the first often victims of this attack or lashing out. As a cartoonist, do you think twice about what you are drawing and what you're going to put out there because of threatening behavior?
Well, I think over the past decade there's been a chilling effect where every cartoonist is beginning to feel, am I going to offend somebody, or is this going to hurt someone? And I think that's very destructive to the cartoonist and to the art form itself. I mean, I think the old expression, the pen is mightier than the sword, is more relevant today than it's ever been. Those people in France may have been killed by bullets, but it was the pen strokes that just infuriated those people.
Have you been threatened because of your work?
I haven't been threatened. I've certainly been under the gun for hate mail and hate phone calls. I did a cartoon with my collaborator James Hudnon. He was threatened. His life was threatened. And I felt I was in the eye of the storm for 2 days, where it was just from strangers and acquaintances alike, where it was just nonstop hatred for something that I thought was a very benign cartoon about Obama and his wife. So you can imagine if I did something really strong.
I see. Dave, how do you deal with stories as an editor that you know are going to be controversial? Either they're going to talk about a religious group, terrorist, extremists. How do you edit that? What do you decide to do with that?
Well, I usually decide to publish it. We're an alternative weekly, and there is a rich tradition of being provocative in our genre of media. We have a columnist who has been with us for our entire time, in existence, and that's going on 13 years, who's been with us the whole time, and he has pretty much lampooned everybody, every group you could possibly think of, from just about every religious groups. He's taken on Jews, Muslims, Catholics, Christians, everybody, and I don't think too long and hard about publishing those because, I mean, you got to stand up for expression.
Well, we're all familiar. There's many journalists who are killed in the line of doing their work, including many in Mexico. Do you think it's more dangerous now to be a journalist than it was in years past, or the same?
Tough for me to know without looking at the statistics. It feels like the tension may be ratcheting up. I mean, you have journalists dying. Journalists have always died trying to cover wars, but in the past that had been sort of collateral damage where they were just sort of in the wrong place at the wrong time. But now they are being targeted, and I think that might have started maybe in the 90s or so. And you have journalists who are dying because of covering the drug cartels and all kinds of reasons.
Let me ask this of you, Batten. What kind of action do you think we should take as journalists and cartoonists here in this country in response to this terrorist attack?
Well, I think we should just double down and just increase the satirical cartoons. Don't hold back. I mean, I'm a little appalled that there's a cartoonist from Seattle, Molly Norris. There's hardly been any discussion about her. She suggested that we do a Draw Muhammad Day, and she had to go into hiding because a jihad was put on her.
And Dave, would you agree? Do you think we should double down? How should we respond to this?
That would be my first reaction, but then, as I get older, I may be getting more careful and cautious, but then my next thought would be you're not just making that decision for yourself as sort of a crusader. You have people around you, you have family and friends, not to mention, especially, you have people who work in your office who could become targets.
Yeah,
All right.
but that's true. However, even those people that say aren't on the creative end, they've got to understand that if the creative end has to pull back, who knows what's going to happen to them when they pull back in whatever their endeavor is, if that makes any sense.
It's a slippery slope.
Yeah, it's a very slippery slope, but I think everyone should just stand together and say we're not going to be. It's really a wide, worldwide bullying that's going on, and we all have to stand tall over it.
All right, Batten Lash and Dave Rowland, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
PBS NewsHour will have more on the attack coming up at 7, and we'll be updating the story on our website, kpbs.org. 2 women in their 80s are the first to die from the flu this season in San Diego County. Officials say they both lived in a local nursing home and had underlying medical conditions. KPBS health reporter Kenny Goldberg joins us from the North County Bureau. Now, Kenny, how unusual is it to have deaths like these from the flu?
Well, these kind of deaths are not unusual at all. As a matter of fact, typically on average every year, about 90% of people who die from the flu are 65 and older.
And is it a pretty severe flu season this year?
Well, health officials don't like to characterize the severity of a flu season until after the season's over. But we can say so far this year in San Diego County, about 919 people have become sick from the flu. That's compared to about 545 people at the same time last year. So we're definitely ahead of last year's pace, but we'll have to wait till this season concludes to determine the severity of it.
Now, flu vaccines are developed in advance, so it's a bit of a guessing game. Is it a perfect match this year?
No, it's not. As a matter of fact, the A strain of the virus that's circulating right now has mutated since they designed the vaccine, so it's not a perfect match. However, officials say the vaccine does adequately protect people against the other strains of the virus that are circulating.
So are health officials still recommending that people go out and get a flu shot?
Yes, they are. San Diego's flu season doesn't typically peak until the end of January and early February. So officials say there's still time for people to get a flu shot, and there's ample supply of it available in the county.
KPBS health reporter Kenny Goldberg. Thanks, Kenny. The state health department says at least 9 people got measles during a visit to the Disney parks in Anaheim last month. A couple of them were from San Diego County, and health officials here say they may have exposed shoppers at Parkway Plaza in El Cajon. Now, the Disney visits happened between December 15th and the 20th. The Parkway Plaza visit was on December 29th. Measles developed 7 to 21 days after exposure. The early symptoms include a cough, runny nose, and red eyes. The rash develops a little bit later on, but the disease is contagious before the rash appears. Anyone who suspects they may have measles is advised to call their doctor. A teenage girl is accused of posting an Instagram threat that shut down Carlsbad High School this week. KPBS education reporter Matt Bowler joins us from the newsroom with more. Matt, can you give us a quick rundown on what happened?
Well, Carlsbad police say that around 9 Monday morning, the 15-year-old girl in custody posted on Instagram, quote, "I'm going to shoot up Carlsbad High today at 11:30 or tomorrow at 10:20. If all else fails, see you soon." The threat prompted Carlsbad Unified School District to close Carlsbad High Monday and Tuesday. District officials also shut down Carlsbad Village Academy on Tuesday. As of today, both schools are back open.
Now, today the teen is in custody. School is open, and the police are talking about the situation. What did they say?
Carlsbad Police Department Lieutenant Pete Pasquale told reporters the girl could face serious charges, but thankfully her threats were hollow.
She did not have the means nor the intent to follow through with the initial criminal threats.
Now, legal experts tell me it doesn't matter if she intended to carry out the threat or not. The girl could still be prosecuted. All the district attorney office would confirm is that they are not charging her as an adult.
And how are students at that school reacting?
Students are understandably worried. They were back in class today, and they wonder why anyone would make these kinds of threats.
I kind of feel bad for her, honestly, because there's probably more going on than we know, like at home.
I just wonder what makes you want to do that. I mean, I wouldn't know, but I'd like to just know what makes you want to post that, say that.
The girl was arrested at her home by Carlsbad police. She was identified with the help of the FBI, the school district, and the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force.
KPBS education reporter Matt Bowler. Thanks, Matt. State DMV officials say that more than 46,000 immigrants started applying for a driver's license in California in the first 3 days that they were available for those in the country illegally. 54% of applicants who took the written test in English passed it, and 36% passed it in Spanish. DMV predicts just over 1 million undocumented immigrants could seek licenses under the new law. California's court system is under scrutiny for its spending. The state auditor looked into the administrative office of the courts, a state agency that manages the system's budget. The auditor says that the agency's spending is depriving trial courts of badly needed funding. Some of the findings: 8 office directors are making more than $179,000 a year. That's more than the governor. And the auditor says the agency could save about $7 million a year by using state employees instead of contractors and temporary workers. The report also found few policies or controls to make sure that funds are spent properly. Teen retailer Wet Seal is closing more than 300 stores, including at least 2 in San Diego County. Nearly 4,000 workers are losing their jobs. The company says it's losing out to other stores that offer low-priced fashions, and it says teens are spending on tech gadgets instead of new jeans. Remember that big fight over foie gras? California banned the delicacy back in 2012. Now, a federal judge has overturned the ban. Foie gras is that fatty liver of a duck or a goose, and it's controversial because the birds are force-fed to enlarge those livers. The ban is also controversial. Restaurant owners say it goes too far. Egg prices could go up by 50% since California's new cage-free law went into effect on the 1st of January. Peggy Pico talks with a local egg farmer about the potential impact.
Proposition 2 took a while to, shall we say, hatch, since being a state ballot initiative back in 2008 when voters banned cramped cages and crates for livestock. Joining me with a look at the impact on chickens and egg prices are my guest, Frank Hilliker of Hilliker's Ranch Fresh Eggs in Lakeside, and veterinarian Gary Weitzman, president of the San Diego Humane Society. Now, Gary, the U.S. Humane Society was a driving force behind this Proposition 2, this cage-free law, as it's sometimes called, especially because of battery cages. What are those and why ban them?
Yeah, battery cages basically are just as you described it, introducing this. They're cramped caging for upwards of 6-8 chickens per cage, about 67 square inches for the size of that cage, which is really the size of less than a piece of paper for each chicken.
So the chickens couldn't stand, they couldn't move around.
No, they couldn't really express any of their normal behaviors, and that was the problem.
Well, now with this new law in effect as of January 1st, what are the confinement, what are the laws now? What are its requirements?
Yeah, interesting. When voters overwhelmingly approved this in 2008, it was really all about the welfare of the chickens. And it's not just chickens, by the way. It's chickens and calves and pigs. So it's really the animals that we so rely on for what we don't see very often, how they are raised for production for us. But basically, it was so that they could express normal behaviors, stand up, turn around, extend their wings, and actually, frankly, be chickens. And thankfully, Californians overwhelmingly approved this legislation, and it's the strongest legislation ever in the United States.
No, Frank, your egg ranch has been in family business, I believe, since 1942. What kind of changes did you have to make to your hen houses because of this law?
Well, what we had to do was we decided to make our first cage-free house, so we had to gut all the cages out and put some cement down, and we went with an aviary style, so we built this big structure that the chickens can play on, and we have toys on there for them, and they jump in and out of the nest boxes and whatnot, and we built that, and then we put chickens in there, and there you go. We have a big cage-free house. And then we have another one under construction, and then we have 3 that we've modified.
Have you had to raise your prices? I assume that costs quite a bit of money to do. Have you had to raise your prices to compensate for this sort of change?
Well, we raised our prices, but not because of this change. It's just because of the egg market went up. We follow the market. When the market goes up, we go up. When it goes down, it goes down. And pretty much it's just a cost of doing business. I wish I could say that because I had to spend $220,000 on one chicken house, I immediately could raise my price. I have to compete with everybody else out there.
I see. Is there a difference between cage-free or free-range labeled chickens that we already see on the cartons right now, and this sort of a hen house with the extra freedom from this law?
Yeah, the big difference between cage-free and free-range is cage-free, they're all inside. Free-range means they have access to outside. I thought about doing that, but we have a problem with free-range coyotes.
Okay, so back to the basics on that. Gary, this law applies, as you mentioned, to other livestock, to veal calves, to I think breeding pigs, right? So what about eggs coming in from other states or from other countries? Does it apply to them?
Yeah, actually, that's where this proposition became so powerful. About a year or two later, Governor Schwarzenegger signed in AB 1437, which actually means that eggs imported into the state of California have to comply with California standards. That's led to a number of lawsuits by egg producers across the United States, all of which have been withdrawn or dismissed by current rulings. But that's the real glory of this law, that it's not only California producers like this gentleman
Frank,
who's doing such a great job, Frank, but it's about everyone around the United States and how they produce and take care of those animals whose eggs are coming into the state of California.
So, pardon the pun, but in a nutshell, the other egg farmers that you're competing with, Frank, have to essentially have to adhere to if they're importing it to California. I see. Now, Frank, I'm not being silly here. Have you noticed any changes in chickens' behavior since you have allowed them to be a little freer?
Well, I think what I've seen is probably more natural chicken behavior when they're in cages. They just kind of stood there and would sit down or lie down as best as they could. But now that we've got them out in the cage-free barn, we're watching how they perch, they're dust bathing, they're
behaving like chickens.
Behaving like chickens, yeah. It's interesting watching like the boss chicken, and she'll get a pecking order, and there'll be some other followers. You could tell they're like all these like little groups of chickens that stay together.
So you're noticing it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we have a lot more on our website about this, kpbs.org. Frank Hilliker and Gary Weitzman, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. A reason to celebrate.
A couple of years ago, celebrity chef Jamie Oliver campaigned to get chocolate milk out of school cafeterias. Now he's looking at drinking water. He says 2.5 million students are drinking sugar-filled sodas and juice because they don't have access to clean drinking water at school.
Arvin Lamont School in Kern County currently has arsenic running through its water system. This is not appropriate. We must get the basics.
Oliver is working with the California Endowment to install clean water taps and filtration systems at schools across the state. He says undrinkable water is a third world problem. This next story might make you a little bit leery of heading to the bathroom. Now, a worker in a gas lamp district office found a huge snake inside a toilet. It was a 5.5-foot long boa constrictor. Look at the size of that. The county animal control department now has the snake, but no idea how it got into the bathroom. If the owner doesn't turn up, the boa is going to be turned over to a reptile rescue group.
I'm Gwen Eiffel on the next news hour. As the use of private drones soar, so too does concern over safety and privacy. That's Wednesday on the PBS NewsHour.
A group of San Diego developers are pushing an idea to put a massive Ferris wheel on the waterfront in downtown San Diego. The huge tourist attraction could be built beside two notable landmarks, the Midway Aircraft Museum and the Kiss statue, but developers are suggesting this bit of land known as the G Street Mole become home to the giant Ferris wheel instead. It could cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $200 million to build and generate up to $70 million a year in revenue. The port is expected to take the issue up in February. Cooler temperatures are in the forecast for us, along with a slight chance of showers for some parts of the county. Low 70s expected along the coast tomorrow. It's going to be dropping into the 60-degree range as we head toward the weekend. Inland valleys are going to be just a few degrees warmer. You can see there that the high temperature on Thursday up around 73 degrees. It generally gets a little cooler through 68 by Saturday. Chance of some sprinkles overnight and into the next couple of days. Showers expected for us up in the mountains, and of course cooler temperatures with the elevation, up around 59 on Thursday, 58 on Friday, and then 55 degrees on Saturday. But it's not going to be cold enough for snow overnight. You can see the overnight temperatures hovering in the 40s. If you go out into the desert areas, temperatures there could drop into the 60s by Saturday. Clouds there Thursday and Friday, and we get some sunshine in the area as the high hits 69 on Saturday. You can find tonight's stories. They're all on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks very much for joining us. We'll be back here again tomorrow night, and we hope you have a great evening.